For years, Ron Howard looked untouchable. The calm one, the smiling legend, Hollywood's golden boy who somehow dodged all the chaos while everyone else burned out. Perfect image, perfect career, no visible cracks anywhere. Or so it seemed. What people didn't see was the pressure he buried deep inside, the thoughts he never dared to share, the memories he locked away while the world cheered for his flawless perfection. But now, everything feels different, eerily different.
Today I'm here to announce that our office will be filing charges against Nick Reiner, who is accused of killing his parents, actor-director Rob Reiner, and photographer-producer Michelle Singer Reiner.
After the heartbreaking loss of Rob Reiner, something inside Ron shifted hard. The industry went silent, but Ron started to talk. And when he did, it wasn't that shiny, rehearsed Hollywood talk.
You know, there was a point where he was delusional. And having kind of episodes that were drug related, but brushes with the law and flirting with kind of homelessness, and and it was unsustainable. He'd been through rehab a couple of times unsuccessfully, and looked like it was just getting worse.
He called out the quiet rivalries, the bottled up emotions, and the real respect that never makes it into glossy interviews. People didn't see this version of him coming, and it's exactly why it hit like a punch to the chest. Reiner's passing cracked something open inside him, something deep and real. Ron began reflecting on how fragile the industry truly is, how fast things turn upside down, and how even the brightest stars are tied together by complicated, messy bonds. This wasn't distant or professional, it was raw, straight from the heart. His long silence didn't fade quietly. It shattered, and what came out felt heavy, honest, and full of meaning. He even hinted at memories directly connected to Rob Reiner. And suddenly, everyone realized their connection ran far deeper than anyone had ever imagined. Not just colleagues, much as peers, something way heavier was brewing beneath the surface. Ron Howard's story suddenly feels louder than ever, like a truth that's been waiting decades to be heard. Born on March 1, 1954, in Duncan, Oklahoma, Ron didn't grow up chasing fame. He was raised right in the middle of it. His parents, actor Rance Howard and actress Jean Spiegel, built a home where creativity ruled every corner, but discipline never slipped for even a second. Long hours, sky-high expectations, and constant uncertainty, that mix shaped him before he could even understand what show business really meant. Before most kids even knew what a camera looked like, Ron was already standing under the lights. At just 18 months old, he appeared in Frontier Woman, unknowingly stepping into a life that would never, ever slow down. By the late 1950s, the family packed out and moved to California, and from that moment on, normal life vanished like smoke. Fast auditions replaced playgrounds, and scripts took the place of bikes. Soundstages became his streets, and while other kids were out losing baby teeth or playing tag, Ron was busy memorizing lines with a natural ease that stunned adults.
People would ask me from the publishing world, did I ever think I would do an autobiography or memoir? And I always said, no, don't think so. But I asked Tom one day, and he said, well, if you ever do it, focus on your childhood.
Dinner tables turned into workstation, tutors hovered near rolling cameras, and free time became a distant dream. His childhood wasn't bad, but it sure wasn't free. Years later, Ron would describe it perfectly. It was a golden cage. Safe, yes, but painfully lonely. Then everything changed in an instant. October 3rd, 1960, The Andy Griffith Show premiered, and 6-year-old Ron became America's favorite kid overnight. The symbol of innocence. The face families trusted and adored without question. Behind that perfect smile was a quiet boy, sitting alone doing homework in tiny studio rooms while laughter echoed from outside. Fame looked warm and shiny on the screen, but up close it felt cold and distant. His father fought hard to protect him, pushing for better scripts and grounding him with one rule that changed everything. Never act cute, just act honest. That line became Ron's compass for life. But honesty didn't cancel out the cost, it just made it clearer. Ron was adored on screen, yet off camera, he never fully belonged to himself. At the same time, Rob Reiner was climbing the same ladder, caught in the same Hollywood machine. Another young star learning how fame could lift you high while trapping you in a box you didn't build. Same pressure, same constant eyes watching, same quiet weight that never really goes away. both of them carried it, the unspoken tension of growing up under spotlights that never dimmed. And those feelings didn't fade when the hammers stopped rolling. They piled up year after year. By the time The Andy Griffith Show wrapped in 1968, Ron was just 14, but he had already lived 8 long seasons inside a world that was never truly real. His schooling split between classrooms and soundstages. Lunch wasn't with kids his age. It was with crew members and Hollywood legends twice his years. It was loving, yes, and supportive, but still so isolating. One small moment says it all. During The Music Man, 8-year-old Ron froze mid-dance, whispering, "I can't do it." Shirley Jones gently calmed him down while the crew quietly shot around his mistakes. The audience saw confidence, but behind the scenes it was fear, pressure, and a young kid just trying his best to hold it all together. That's why Ron's empathy for Rob Reiner cuts so deep. It's not just sympathy, it's shared pain. Both of them grew up under the same blinding spotlight. Both had strong guiding fathers, and both learned too early that behind every flawless scene, there's often a kid quietly struggling to breathe. And now, with that truth finally out in the open, people are seeing them in a whole new light, and it's shaking up Hollywood's perfect image of them. Those quiet anxieties never really left Ron Howard. He just got better at hiding them behind that calm, collected smile everyone trusted. Confidence became a performance, a mask he wore so well that people stopped noticing the cracks. That calmness turned into a secret armor, a shield built to survive a business overflowing with egos, pressure, and non-stop expectations. While others, like Rob Reiner, grabbed attention by being bold and loud, Ron stayed cool, always observing, always learning, always reading the room before stepping in. Then, in 1974, everything flipped in an instant. Happy Days hit the screen, and 19-year-old Ron walked into Gary Marshall's office with no clue that this one role would glue him to America's heart all over again. As Richie Cunningham, he became the ultimate boy next door, polite, loyal, and safe. And fans couldn't get enough. But behind the scenes, the walls were closing in fast. The image everyone adored started boxing him in, trapping the real Ron behind that scripted smile that the world refused to let fade. By 1977, Ron Howard was 23, but still pretending to be a teenager on screen. Outside the studio, the world was on fire. Culture was shifting, voices were rising, protests filled the streets, and people his age were questioning everything. Yet on Happy Days, Richie Cunningham stayed trapped in a bubble of nostalgia, safe, cheerful, and untouched by reality. That disconnect started eating at Ron every single day until he couldn't stay quiet anymore. He finally sent a memo to ABC, asking for one simple thing, just one storyline that touched on the Vietnam War, something real, something that spoke to what people were actually living through. The response came back quick and cold, no. That flat rejection hit hard, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in a quiet, draining one that sunk deep. It wasn't just creative frustration, it was identity fatigue. Ron started to feel invisible behind his own character, like he was trapped living someone else's life while his own was stuck on pause. The truth was screaming in his head. It was time to make a change. If he ever wanted his voice back, he needed to step behind the camera. That realization mirrored what Rob Reiner would face too. Two men chasing truth inside an industry that loved freezing people in time. For Ron, directing wasn't about ambition or ego. It was an escape route, a desperate need to breathe again. Freedom finally came knocking in 1977, when Roger Corman tossed him a wild offer. Star in Eat My Dust and earn the chance to direct his own movie. It wasn't about chasing fame anymore. It was about taking control, claiming ownership, and steering his own story for the first time. That risky leap turned into Grand Theft Auto, a wild, chaotic car comedy co-written with his father, Rance Howard. The budget was tiny, just $62,000, but they pulled off jaw-dropping stunts, wrecked nearly 70 cars, and somehow transformed it into a $15 million hit. A bold gamble that proved Ron wasn't just a face on a poster. He was a force ready to drive his own destiny. Hollywood took notice, and fast. For the first time in his life, Ron Howard felt real creative power. Acting had never given him that rush. It was addictive, electrifying, and impossible to ignore. But power always comes with a price, and Ron was about to learn how heady it could get. Suddenly, every project felt personal. Every shot carried meaning, and every single detail mattered way too much. He carried it all like weight pressing down on his chest. Every note, every scene, every outcome. The hits kept stacking up. Night Shift, Splash, Cocoon, Willow, Parenthood. Each one a major success, but with every win came more pressure, more unspoken expectations. Studios trusted him completely, but that trust turned into a quiet kind of demand that followed him everywhere he went. By the early 90s, Ron wasn't the kid from Mayberry anymore. He was a full-blown Hollywood powerhouse. And just like Rob Reiner, he stepped into a spotlight that didn't just shine, it burned if you stood there too long. Then came Apollo 13 in 1995. Not just another movie, a mission. Ron chased realism with total obsession. No shortcuts, no fake drama. Nothing less than the real deal. The crew shot over 600 zero-gravity sequences, each lasting just 23 seconds of weightlessness. It was painstaking, brutal, and relentless. Mission Control wasn't a set. It was a rebuild, crafted with real NASA panels bought for $1 each. Every switch, every button had to be perfect. Ron worked 18-hour days for months, running on caffeine and pure drive, refusing to take the easy way out. But eventually, the body couldn't keep up with the mind. One morning, exhaustion hit like a wall, and everything stopped. Production froze. Hollywood's golden perfectionist had finally hit his breaking point. The crew waited in silence, unsure if Ron would even come back. When he finally did, pale, drained, but still laser-focused, they greeted him wearing shirts that read, "Mission Control." It was their quiet way of saying, "We've got you." That moment hit deep. Passion had crossed a dangerous line, and the cost of perfection had finally revealed itself. In that raw realization, Ron understood something powerful, something Rob Reiner had learned too. Chasing brilliance can slowly pull you away from yourself, one late night at a time. That truth never left him. So when the heartbreaking news about Rob Reiner came years later, it wasn't just sadness that Ron felt. It was reflection, recognition. Two creators molded by the same relentless fire, both learning how dedication can turn into isolation if nobody steps in to pull you back. Even before Rob Reiner's loss, Ron had already been carrying his own quiet heartbreak, one that never really healed. Back in 1991, life looked perfect from the outside. His career was booming, his creative control was total, and his family had just grown. His new baby, Jocelyn, had been born. Everything seemed to line up exactly as planned, until it didn't. Then came the decision that would change everything. A 6-month shoot in Ireland for Far and Away. Ron told himself he could handle it. He had to. But Cheryl, his wife, stayed home holding the fort, managing a newborn, their young twins, and their daughter Bryce Dallas Howard, while Ron disappeared into endless days of rewrites, harsh weather, and non-stop studio demands. What looked like a dream project on paper became something heavier in reality. A reminder that success can cost more than anyone ever admits. The distance, the exhaustion, the guilt, it all started to pile up, whispering a truth he could no longer ignore. Even golden boys have breaking points. Ron kept telling himself it was temporary, that the sacrifice made sense, that it was all for the family's future. But deep down, he felt it. He was drifting too far away, and when he finally came home, the silence inside the house said more than words ever could. The air felt heavier. The laughter that once filled every room now sounded distant. The connection that once grounded him cracked. And then came the moment that almost broke him completely. His baby daughter didn't recognize him. Bryce barely reacted when he walked through the door. Cheryl, his rock, his anchor, stood there with eyes that said everything without saying a word. She was carrying a level of exhaustion that no speech or apology could fix. Years later, Ron would admit that this single moment shattered something inside him. That was the day it all hit. Success meant nothing if it came at the cost of the people he loved most. No award could ever replace lost time. No praise could patch up emotional distance. Right then and there, he made himself a quiet promise. Never again. He swore his career would never take more than it gave. But habits built over a lifetime don't just vanish overnight. By 2005, during the brutal reshoots for Cinderella Man, those old patterns started to creep back in. Sleepless nights, endless calls, pressure to deliver absolute perfection. He was gone for months again, swallowed by the work. And when he finally returned home, his kids hadn't just grown taller, they had grown into moments he would never get back. That realization hit harder than any critic ever could. Cheryl held everything together, just like she always did. But Ron knew deep down, the weight wasn't shared evenly. She carried more than anyone ever saw, quietly keeping the family standing, while he chased perfection across film sets and deadlines. That second slip forced Ron to face something buried deep inside him, a belief planted way back during his childhood acting days. He had always felt like he had to say yes to everything, had to prove himself constantly, had to over-deliver every single time. That unshakable drive pushed him toward greatness, but it also built a quiet guilt that never really went away. And then came 2025, their 50th wedding anniversary, a milestone wrapped in history and emotion. Standing at John Burroughs High School, where he and Cheryl first met, Ron finally dropped his lifelong armor. He donated a bench in her honor and spoke words that left everyone in the crowd completely still. He said he would trade every award, every hit film, every ounce of recognition, just to get back the time he lost with his children. No spin, no Hollywood polish, just raw, undeniable truth. That's why Rob Reiner's story hit him so hard. It wasn't just about loss, it was about understanding. It was a mirror reflecting everything Ron had fought for, stumbled through, and painfully learned along the way. Two creators forged by the same blinding spotlight, both carrying the scars of chasing dreams that never stopped demanding more. And that reflection didn't fade there. It kept echoing long after the applause ended, reminding everyone that even legends pay a price for perfection. That reflection pulled Ron even further back, to the one relationship that kept him grounded long before fame ever tightened its grip. His bond with his younger brother, Clint Howard. To the public, Clint was that unforgettable face popping up everywhere, a familiar presence in dozens of shows and films. But to Ron, Clint was something far deeper, living proof that someone else truly got it. Someone who understood the strange, exhausting reality of growing up under those relentless studio lights. They were raised side by side on neighboring sets, passing each other in echoing hallways, buzzing with cables, cameras, and the constant hum of production heat. Two kids earning paychecks before they could even spell their own names, reciting lines before they had any idea who they were. That shared start became Ron's quiet anchor, a sacred reminder of who he was before the pressure, before the expectations, before the spotlight demanded everything he had to give. For Ron, Clint was more than a brother. He was a lifeline. They weren't just siblings. They were co-workers, survivors, two kids growing up under impossible conditions that most people could never understand. And while Ron rose to the top of Hollywood, Clint was fighting his own quieter battles, against pressure, judgment, and the grind of being known, but never truly seen. By the late 1980s, things started to spiral. Ron watched helplessly as his brother drifted further away, caught in struggles that success couldn't fix. Then came 1990, the breaking point. Ron finally drew a line, not in anger, but out of fierce love. He looked at his brother and said one sentence that changed everything: "Get help or lose me forever." It was the hardest thing he ever said, and the truest. And it worked. Clint chose recovery. He chose life, and that decision saved him. Years later, the brothers opened up about their journey, crediting brutal honesty and an unbreakable family bond for pulling them through. It was proof that real love, when pushed to its absolute limit, can still pull someone back from the edge. But decades later, a new kind of fear crept into Ron's life. One he couldn't outwork, couldn't schedule around, couldn't fix with talent or charm. Clint began facing a serious health battle. Ron kept the details private, but his tone in interviews said it all. This wasn't minor. It was life-altering. For a man built on control, it shattered the illusion completely. Ron couldn't yell cut, couldn't rewrite the ending, couldn't protect his brother the way Clint once protected him when fame felt too heavy to carry. That powerlessness hit him harder than any box office failure ever could. For the first time, Ron admitted something that truly shocked people. He wasn't afraid of critics, or failure, or even fading from relevance. He was terrified of losing the one person who had walked beside him through every single chapter of his life. That fear changed him from the inside out. Friends noticed it. The way he slowed down, the way he listened deeper, the way his voice softened when talking about family. That pain shaped how he reacted to Rob Reiner's story too. Ron was finally forced to confront a truth he dodged for years. No matter how careful you are, some stories are simply beyond control. No award can fix that. No perfect framing saves you in interviews. Ron admitted this shook him deeper than any career setback, because nothing, not pressure or success, compares to the fear of losing family. Ron spoke about the sleepless nights, those long hours where memories looped in his mind like an old film reel. The tiny classrooms, the hushed talks between scenes, the moments that once felt warm and safe now felt fragile, almost haunting. And behind those flashes of nostalgia came guilt, heavy, relentless guilt. Guilt that his career had soared while Clint struggled quietly in the shadows. Guilt that he hadn't noticed the signs sooner. Guilt that no matter how much success he gained, he couldn't shield his brother forever. That realization hit hard, and it reshaped everything. Ron began stepping back from long shoots, turning down major projects, and slowly removing himself from the non-stop cycle he once lived by. Even his company now runs with less of him at the center. No more endless shooting days. No more chasing perfection until dawn. Instead, Ron's life revolves around being present, around family time, laughter, and stillness. That's why his reflections on Rob Reiner carry such weight now. One creator quietly honoring another. Two men defined by love, loss, and the heavy price of caring too deeply. Today, Ron Howard's world moves slower, softer, and more deliberately. It's about family dinners, quiet nights, and the little things he once let slip through his fingers, but now holds on to with both hands. And Ron made one thing crystal clear. He refuses to lose the people he loves ever again. In one of the most honest moments of his career, he admitted that the silence between projects changed him. For decades, he told everyone else's stories, but forgot his own. At 71, with a lifetime of success behind him, Ron finally said it out loud. None of it means a thing if the people you love start slipping away. Fans weren't shocked that Ron had struggled. They were shocked that he'd carried it all alone. Just as he began slowing down, just as life was finally softening around the edges, tragedy struck again. The news about Rob Reiner shattered the fragile calm he'd worked so hard to build. Ron was already worn thin, still worrying about his brother Clint's health, when that headline hit, a headline that froze him in place. Rob wasn't just a peer, he was a mirror. Loud where Ron was quiet, fearless where Ron was careful. But both were fueled by the same truth, the same fire that had burned through every phase of their lives. When Ron finally spoke, his voice cracked. He didn't talk about box office numbers or Oscars. He talked about love, about family, about how fast everything can change. There's no script for moments like this, he said softly. And for the first time, the man known for control had absolutely none left. Already weighed down by fear for his brother, the shock of losing both Rob and Michelle Reiner hit him like a wave. It felt like life was stacking loss on top of loss, each one heavier than the last. A brutal reminder that control is just an illusion. That pain didn't just hurt him, it clarified everything. Slow down. Be present. Hold your people tighter than ever before. The truths Ron had only recently begun to accept suddenly felt urgent, unavoidable, and heartbreakingly real. Rob Reiner wasn't just a loss. He was a reflection, a warning, a final lesson. Loud where Ron was quiet, bold where Ron was careful, yet both of them driven by the same hunger for meaning, for truth, and for something real that fame could never replace. As the weeks passed, a quiet tension seemed to follow Ron everywhere. Not anger, not blame, just deep, aching regret. His relationship with Rob Reiner had always been layered, built on respect but tangled with rivalry, admiration mixed with distance. Two Hollywood giants walking parallel paths, never colliding, never fully closing the space between them. They weren't enemies, they were mirrors. Each one pushed the other forward, without ever needing to say it out loud. Rob's fire challenged Ron's restraint. Ron's precision slowed Rob's intensity. That silent balance defined their connection, but it also haunted Ron after Rob was gone. He kept replaying old moments, conversations that never happened, words that should have been spoken, but never were. The weight of what was left unsaid sat heavy. When asked about Rob, Ron paused, eyes down, and finally said softly, "We didn't always agree, but he made me better." Maybe I never told him that. That single line said everything. It cracked open years of unspoken emotion between two men who never needed to compete. They just did, by nature of who they were. Two storytellers bound by respect, rivalry, and that quiet ache of what if. What if they had one more talk? One more scene together? One more chance to say what they'd both been circling around for decades? "We were trying to say the same thing," Ron admitted, just in different languages. That single confession summed it all up. Beneath the rivalry, beneath the applause, beneath all the pressure, Ron Howard and Rob Reiner had always been chasing the same fragile truth about love, legacy, and the strange, heavy world they grew up in. By early 2026, the headlines may have moved on, but for Ron Howard, nothing truly faded. The silence stayed loud, haunting, heavy. Friends say Ron has been writing quietly again. Not a blockbuster, not a studio film, but something raw, something personal. A story about two creators chasing the same truth, mistaking reflection for rivalry, trying to have the conversation they never got to finish. When asked if the project was about Rob Reiner, Ron just smiled gently and said, "It's about losing the one person who understood you, even when you didn't always understand each other." That line hit hard, because that's where this story ends. Not with closure, but with clarity. Two men, different styles, same fire. One calm and careful, the other loud and fearless, both trying to carve meaning out of chaos. In the end, legacy isn't about perfection, it's about connection. It's about who stands beside you through the noise, who sees you for who you really are. Ron Howard's story reminds us that even in the spotlight, the brightest truth comes from the heart. And sometimes, the people who challenge us the most are the ones who understand us best. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more stories that dig deep behind Hollywood's brightest lights.